Go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be back here again. Who was here when I was here last year? Was it last year? Yeah. Oh, so nice to see you all again. So today we're going to talk about how to be smart with your smartphone and your tablet. But first I'm going to do a little survey. I think I know the answer to this question. But for those of you who haven't met me before, who in this room is under the age of 40? We have one. Yes, we do. Other than our fine friend there, we all fall into the club that we all belong to, which is we are all digital immigrants. That means we weren't born with a keyboard or a mouse in our hand, right? Doesn't mean you can't learn the technology. Doesn't mean there's anything that's out of range for you guys, but statistically you will learn it slower than our digital native friend who is here. Our digital native was born with a keyboard or a mouse practically in his hand, and so when he picks up things, he thinks they're a toy and he just plays with them. We don't think they're a toy, we think it's something that needs to be conquered and is a little intimidating. That's the difference for us. So by a show of hands, who in this room has a tablet? That's the big change. Who in this room has a smartphone instead of a cell phone? Okay, so that's what I want to talk today. Let's see if this works now. It did. All right, so this says, that's right, dear, our ancestors had tails. That was the big change in technology, was that we went from having everything connected by way of a cord to having things have the ability to move around without having a cord. So even in your home, you've been using wireless technology for a very long time, because your home phone, which used to have a handset connected to a base station, connected to the wall, you've been walking around with a wireless phone for a very long time. There was a change, however, between that wireless technology and the wireless technology that allows us to connect to the internet. So here are three little birds talking about their friend over there saying he has Wi-Fi. There's this umbrella of wireless technology. And under the umbrella of wireless technology, we have two different things. We have Wi-Fi, which is what connects our devices to the internet. And then we have Bluetooth, which is what connects our devices to each other wirelessly. And you don't really need to know what the names are for everything in order to use the technology, although I did just do a talk in Queens, and there was this 86-year-old woman in the front row in this library, and she very defiantly said to me, I'm never going to use any of this technology. And I love that she came to see the class anyway, because it wasn't that she was going to use the technology, it was this, that she wanted to know what the technology was, which is really half the battle. So in that case, at the end of the class, I walked her out to the end of the library where her 14-year-old grandson was picking her up, and as she met him, she said, by the way, do you know what Wi-Fi is? It stands for wireless fidelity. I thought, okay, good for her. So there are two ways that we connect to things wirelessly. Wi-Fi is basically what gets your device to the internet. So in your apartment or your home, you may have Wi-Fi. That means that the either cable company or the telephone company that provides your internet connection by way of a modem, that modem has an antenna either built in that you don't see or an antenna that you do see that is sending the signal around so you can connect to the internet even if you're not plugged into the modem. If you don't have Wi-Fi yet in your home, and you want to have Wi-Fi in your home, what you need to do is call up your cable television company or your telephone company and say, you service the internet for me, I need to change the modem to be a wireless modem. And they will inevitably say to you, fine, it's $60 for the new modem, but your monthly fee won't change. And you're going to say to them, I've been a faithful customer for X number of years. If I change to a different company, they're going to give me the modem for free, which I happily will do. And they will give you the modem for free. So I'm saving you $60 right there. So Wi-Fi works this way. In your home, you have Wi-Fi. Starbucks is often referred to as a hotspot. It doesn't mean we might get picked up in Starbucks, but what it means is that you can actually feed onto their wireless signal. Most public libraries have Wi-Fi. Airports have Wi-Fi, so you're finding it more and more places. So when you're in a Wi-Fi area, you can connect to the internet. Bluetooth is the connection between two devices, but it still falls under the umbrella of wireless. So somebody will say to me, you know, I want to buy a tablet, but I print so many of my emails, I won't be able to print if I have a tablet, and that's actually not true. If you have a tablet and you have a Bluetooth or wireless printer, which is the same Bluetooth and wireless, you can actually send the signal from your tablet to the printer so that you can print. That's the Bluetooth wireless connection. You can actually print from your smartphone as long as you have a Bluetooth friendly printer. When you see people with those funny headsets in their ears that look like they're on Star Trek and their phone's in their pocket, it's Bluetooth that's going wirelessly. So Bluetooth is device to device, Wi-Fi is device to the internet. So let's talk about one other aspect of this, because this really matters when it comes to buying a tablet. There's Wi-Fi that connects you to the internet. That's a signal where you are that brings you to the internet. And then there's something called cellular data. All of your smartphones offer both Wi-Fi and cellular data. Cellular data is the signal that goes from your device to whoever you're paying for your connection, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, whatever it is. It goes to their satellite, and then it goes to the internet, as opposed to just feeding off of the Wi-Fi signal that you're in. So smartphones have to have both, because the idea of the smartphone is that you can stay connected to the internet no matter where you are. A smartphone is different than a regular cell phone, because with a smartphone, you can make phone calls like you always could, take pictures like you could with some and more advanced cell phones, but what you can do is you can connect to the internet. So you can send emails, you can send those photographs, you can send those videos, you can use it for a GPS, and there are lots of other connections that you can make once you connect to the internet. So that's really the big difference with a smartphone. But because we're using a phone all the time, you're going to pay a company for the service so you can make your phone calls and so you can feed into their cellular data plan when you're not in a Wi-Fi area. The reason why I bring this up, the reason why I bring this up is if you decide to buy a tablet, tablets come in two different formats. Some tablets only offer you Wi-Fi, and some tablets offer you Wi-Fi and cellular data. And it is one of the things a salesperson is apt to forget to tell you. And it makes a very big difference to a person when they're buying it, whether it's Wi-Fi or whether it offers both. And here, I'll give you the scenario. So I live in New York City, and my apartment has Wi-Fi. I have a little cottage in Connecticut. My cottage in Connecticut has Wi-Fi. So when I'm in my cottage in Connecticut, if I had a tablet that only has Wi-Fi, I could use it both in my apartment and in the cottage. But between the two, I take a 2.5-hour train ride every Friday and every Monday to go back and forth, and I would like to be able to connect to the internet during that train ride, because then I can get work done and actually enjoy my weekend. There is no Wi-Fi right now on the train that goes between the two. So feasibly, if I just had a tablet that had Wi-Fi, I wouldn't be able to connect to the internet. There are two ways to solve that. One way to solve it is something called a MiFi card, not to be confused with Wi-Fi. A MiFi card is about the size of a credit card. You pay a monthly fee for it, and basically you're carrying with you a Wi-Fi connection. And so if you have a MiFi card, you can just basically connect to the internet. It's like you're carrying a Wi-Fi signal. Alternatively, you can buy a device that has both the capability for Wi-Fi and cellular data. And that means that you would pay, if you choose to use the cellular data part of it, you would pay AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, whatever it is, to feed into their satellite to connect to the internet when you're not in a Wi-Fi area. So your cell phone, it's a non-issue, because all cell phones come with a cellular data plan. That's part of what you're doing. But if you're thinking of buying a tablet, I want it to be clear to you that you want to make sure that you ask, if it matters, that you want to be able to use it 24/7, make sure it has the capability for a cellular data plan and isn't just Wi-Fi only. From a security point of view, I just want to bring up, when you're using a Wi-Fi area that's not your home with your own password on it, do you remember with Watergate, they had to break into the hotel, they had to go into the hotel rooms, they had to put the bugs onto the phones? Those days are gone, because all of our communication is actually being sent through the air. So I want you to be cautious when you're feeding off of an open Wi-Fi signal at Starbucks or at the airport or at the public library, that it is not impossible for somebody to break into that signal. I also don't want you to be paranoid, because think of it this way. If you were to rob a bank, you could rob a little teeny weeny bank in a little teeny weeny town and get whatever money they have, or you could rob a big bank in a big town and they'll have more money. the jail time is the same for both. So why wouldn't you go here, right? So if you're somebody who's going to break the law and try to bump into somebody's signal to do whatever it is you want to do, you want to be clear, you're probably not going to do that in somebody's driveway. You're probably not going to do it at the public library. You're probably not even going to do it at Starbucks. Where you're most likely to do it is at an airport, where thousands of people are passing by and you can sit there all day and nobody's really noticing that you're there. And some people are spending a lot of money on first class tickets. So what I want you to do is be discriminating when you're in an open public Wi-Fi area, especially at something like an airport. Don't bank online, don't shop online, don't do things like that if somebody happened to break into the signal, they would see the information about you that you don't want them to see. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm not too concerned about it except when I'm at the airport, because I don't think I'm much of a target in a parking lot at a library, but you never know. So there's an evolution that happened with our smartphones. There are two main kinds of smartphones out there. There are iPhones, which are Apple's product, which really became sort of, before that we had cell phones with Blackberries and things like that, but iPhone really dominated the market when it came out. And there are Android phones. It's like with computers, there are PCs and there are Apple computers, and PCs were basically everything but an Apple computer. It was Microsoft and I was on it, and it was HP and Fujitsu and whoever. That was sort of the umbrella for all personal computers. We now have iPhones, are the one phone here, and then all other phones that are running Google's operating system and not Microsoft are called Android or Droid phones. From my point of view, I'm Switzerland. I use all products because I have to teach all products. Essentially, both will get you everything you need. They'll both let you make a phone call, they'll both let you connect to the internet, they'll both let you take photographs and video and store music if you want to. The one argument is iTunes is the store that feeds the App Store that lets you add programs to your iPhone. They have many more programs to add, but how many can you really add, right? So for you, it's really about what's the cost differential, and Android phones are significantly less expensive than iPhones. What will work seamlessly with what you're using at home so that you can merge the two, and now that's less of a problem because most of that's just happening over the internet. 3, who is it that's going to show you how to use the phone? And in many ways, that's the most important thing. So if your kids are really pushing you to get an Apple phone, and they live in Colorado, and your neighbor knows how to use an Android, I'd say you should go with the Android, because it's the neighbor who's going to help you with it. But it's up to you guys. But those are really the differences, between an Apple phone and an Android phone. Is Android phones tend to be less expensive. Samsung is coming out with one now that's actually waterproof. I don't think you can scuba dive with it, but you can spill stuff on it, so that's nice. Actually, with any of these devices, I highly recommend you put a cover on it to protect the device. The screen is glass. That's what really made the difference with this technology, is everything happens on the screen, and the screens are glass and they're fragile, and it just takes dinging the corner of the device to have the screen shatter. So we want to protect it as much as we can because it is a big investment. I tried to log on to my iPad. It turns out it was an Etch-a-Sketch, and I don't own an iPad. Also, I'm out of wine. This speaks to the frustration that we can all have, unless we're a digital native, when we pick up this stuff and we think we're supposed to figure out how to use it right away. And the fact is, when you hear the words user-friendly or intuitive, it is a bunch of malarkey. It is not user-friendly. It never was. It never will be. It never was intuitive. It never will be intuitive. You have to learn how to use it. The difference between digital natives and you is not that they're picking it up and they're using it perfectly. They're picking it up and they don't care if they're making mistakes. That's really the big difference. So for you, you're going to make as many mistakes as they're going to make, but the mistakes you make are going to slow you down. And you're going to question what it is that you're doing wrong. Digital natives don't they're like, well, that didn't work, I'm going to try this, and then I'm going to try this, and they play with it like a toy. And that's really the big significant difference. So the user-friendly and the intuitive, none of them are, so don't search for it. It's just not the truth behind the technology. So tablets, and I see a bunch of you have tablets. Tablets are just basically an enlarged smartphone. It really was that the evolution of this technology was smartphones and e-readers kind of came out at the same time. E-readers had a limited capacity of what they could do, and then somebody was like, well, why don't we kind of combine the two, and that's what a tablet became. So a tablet is really an enlarged version of a smartphone. So if you have a smartphone that's an iPhone, and you're thinking of buying a tablet, buy the iPad if your wallet allows, because really it's just a bigger version of what you've been using. If you've been using an Android phone and you're thinking of buying a tablet, buy yourself an Android tablet because it's just a bigger version of what you've been using. So your learning curve is going to be easier because there's a familiarity with the device. The very most important thing that we're going to talk about with all of this is safety and etiquette. In many ways, this is more important than what the device can do for you, because in fact, if you don't practice safety with your smartphone, you can kill somebody. It's a big difference, right? Couldn't kill somebody with your desktop, now you can kill somebody with your smartphone. And I say that because my sister was in a car accident with a guy who was on his phone. Her car on the highway spun 3 times. 3 times she saw the traffic coming at her and she was able to pull off and not get hit. His car flipped over. So of course then she thought, oh my gosh, how badly hurt is he? He walks out of the car with his smartphone still in his hand and says, hang on, let me just finish this. I can't believe I did that. It was a new phone. And I'm just like, and my sister, I wasn't there for this, but my sister has a very bad temper. And if she hadn't been in shock from the accident, I think he would have killed her, right? She would have killed him right on the spot. He did, he had his phone in his hand. Didn't even drop it in the accident. I don't think you are probably texting when you're driving. I don't think you're calling people when you're driving, because we didn't grow up with that. We grew up, I remember very clearly, when the telephone would ring during dinner, and we didn't have answering machines at that time, we weren't allowed to get up and pick up the phone, so that it would ring like 20 times while we were having dinner. So we're not thinking, I think of my smartphone as a secretary. And the advantage of that is that with my smartphone, when it rings, I don't think I have to pick it up. I think, oh, lovely, her, she's going to pick it up for me, right? I think it captures all of my emails for me. It captures all of my messages for me. I like having somebody hold them until I want to listen to them. There's a different mindset, I think, when you grow up with the device, that it's so much a part of your body that you tend not to let it do its job, which is take messages for you. With my goddaughters, I ask them to please, and I think they've been pretty good about it, but kids don't always tell you the truth, is that they actually put their phone into the glove box when they get into the car. That's the safest thing that you can do so that you're not tempted to use the phone when you're driving. The other etiquette issues, I was walking down the street in New York a while ago, and a tourist came up to me and asked that good old question, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. But he really meant, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? So I pulled out my phone and I showed him on my GPS where we were standing and how he could get to Carnegie Hall. And he said, thank you. But as he walked away, he said, I hate those things. And I thought, geez. So I went up to him and I said, you know, this is what I do for a living. I'm kind of curious, why do you hate those things? And he said, because I came to New York specifically to see the opera. I was at the opera and somebody's phone went off during the presentation, right? I ask you, do I blame chocolate because I'm overweight? No. So can you blame the telephone because somebody didn't turn it off? We blame technology for all kinds of things that are not technology's fault. You know, when somebody's on Facebook and they do something stupid and they're in a towel and they lose their job, we blame Facebook. I think it was the person who decided to have a picture of themselves in a towel up on Facebook and not Facebook. So in this case, I want to be clear, cell phones are not making things harder for people or making people behave rudely. People were probably behaving rudely before. They probably were talking during the movie before they started talking on their phone during the movie, if you know what I mean. So we want to be very clear. There's no texting when you're walking. When you're walking, happens in New York all the time. Times Square, I see people walking through Times Square looking down at their phone instead of looking up. This, if there's one slide that you will remember from today, I hope it is this one. Because when we hold on to our phones and we look down at our phone, what we're doing is we're putting weight on our spine. And if you look down at your phone at a 60-degree angle, which is a little extreme for most of us, but some of us do that, it is the equivalent of 60 pounds of weight. That is 3 full gallons of paint pulling down on your spine. Shocking, isn't it? So you say to yourself, well, I don't look down that hard. I don't look down 60 degrees, I look down 15 degrees probably. That's probably the average. 15 degrees is 27 pounds of weight, so that's a little bit under 2 gallons, full gallons of paint pulling down on your head. So what I want you to do with your smartphone or your tablet from now on, I want you to hold it up. You can hold it a little bit lower and you're looking down at it, but generally I want you to hold it up to your eyes, right? It's good for your arms. We all need to exercise our arms anyway, so get our arms working. If you have a tablet at home and it's something that you want to use like you do a desktop, buy one of those desks, those reading desks, and set the tablet on that instead so that you're not looking at it in your lap. This is the thing that will cause you damage because our spines do not have an endless shelf life, right? Our spines, we feel it already. So we want to be as good as we can when we're using these devices so they don't hurt us. I'm much more concerned about it hurting you than you hurting the device. Do you see a space for your cell phone at this dinner setting? Me neither. Here's what's interesting to me. It was several years ago when smartphones had just come out. I actually think it was a flip phone, so it was probably a cell phone. I was out to dinner with a friend of mine, and as you recall, in my house, even if the dining room phone was ringing, we weren't allowed to pick it up. So I don't talk on the phone during meals. A friend of mine answered his phone twice when we were having dinner out in a restaurant. The third time it rang, I had enough of it, and I picked the phone up and I put it inside a water glass. So I feel very strongly about this. Yeah, I know. I don't think we had dinner again. But for you guys, it's very interesting because I feel like somehow we lost control of the use of a device that is supposed to help us, not hurt us, not get in the way of our lives, but help us. So in my world, when everybody sits down to dinner, and it's a big dinner like Thanksgiving or something, I will take out an ice bucket, not with ice in it, and I will pass it around. And everybody will put their device in the ice bucket, including your children, whose children are modeling their behavior. It's not that kids need to put away the phones, it's that their parents need to put away the phones. You can't say put away your phone and then, I remember I lived for a little while after I graduated high school with a family, and their daughter, Jennifer, always got into trouble, and I was having dinner with them one night, and Mr. Gregory got mad. The phone rang, she was in trouble for something, I can't remember what it was, and Mr. Gregory said, Jennifer, you are grounded. You can't leave the house for a week, and you can't have any private phone calls. That wasn't cell phones, that was the phone on the kitchen wall, and the phone rang, and it was for Jennifer, and he said, oh, hold on, here she is. I was like, sometimes I think parenting is easier when you actually don't hold what you're saying, but it doesn't do that good anyway. So what I want you to do is I want you to feel free to say to people, hand in your phones before we have this event. I don't know where parents lost control of this. The Wi-Fi in your house has a password. Change the password every day, and the kid doesn't know what the password is until they've done their homework or cleaned their room. It's not rocket science, right? Or unplug it. And at the end of every plug, at the male end of the plug, there's always a hole in one of them. Stick a little luggage lock through the hole and lock it until everything's done. And that includes the parents. Like, let's say it doesn't get turned on until a certain time of day. We don't need to lose control of this so that it takes over our lives. Let's talk about safety issues with your smartphone and your tablet. On my website, when I wrote the book, it's 488 pages, I think, and I didn't have room to put everything in there. So certain things that I couldn't fit in the book on my website, which I'll show you the address later, everything's free on the website, and there are video tutorials. And one of the video tutorials on the website is about putting a passcode on your smartphone or tablet. In the back of the room after the talk is done, I have a series of handouts for you, and one of the handouts there are the instructions for how to put a passcode on your smartphone or on your tablet, whether it's an Android phone or an iPhone. Underneath each video on the website, I have printable instructions that you can download, so those are all back there for you. So why would you put a passcode on your smartphone or on your tablet? I have a lot of people resist this, and I don't understand why you would resist it, because I would wager if somebody broke into your home, they're going to go and they're going to take your television set. Sadly, they might find your jewelry box where there could be some really nice old family stuff in there, but they're not going to access all of the communication that you've had in the last how many years, in and out, right? They're not going to access in your home how to get onto your banking online if you put that password in your contact list, right? They're not going to access the photographs of your granddaughter that have embedded in them, unless you turned off your location services, exactly where her ballet class is and what time it happens on Tuesday. I'm wagering that your smartphone or tablet holds more personal information about you than a thief would find when they go into your home. And you're carrying it on you every day, and there's a possibility of you dropping it, which I did with mine once, or having somebody steal it from you and accessing that information because you think that typing in 4 numbers is going to be more of an inconvenience than having somebody find all that information. I will tell you 100% you're wrong. That's 4 numbers or whatever these codes are that I'm going to walk you through become such second nature to you that you don't even notice that you're doing it, and it protects everything that lives on that smartphone or that tablet. So I really urge you, if you haven't done it yet, that you put some sort of a passcode onto your smartphone and tablet to protect yourself. So with each different device, you have some choices. With an iPhone, you can put in a passcode. It can be as little as 4 characters. It could be longer than that if you want to. With an Android, you have the ability to actually do it in a pattern. Instead of typing in numbers or something, you use your finger across the screen in a certain pattern. That's obviously not the greatest thing to do if you have arthritis or Parkinson's, because you might not be navigating it very well. With a smartphone, you also can use your thumbprint. And you can just have it be that your thumbprint goes onto the phone and it lets you access it. The reason why I have a problem with that is I often will hand my phone to somebody else, even my nephew, so he can play with it. And it would mean that I'd have to open the phone up for him and then do it. You know, he actually knows the passcode on my phone because I trust him with that. So think that through a little bit if you're going to use just the thumbprint, whether or not that's convenient for you. But we've got these choices for the passcode. There are handouts in the back that walk you through how to do that. I guarantee it'll take a day for you to get used to putting in the passcode. I don't even think about it now. I turn on the phone, I put in the passcode, I'm good to go. It's not like I have to agonize over it or take any time to do it. It's really, really worth it. I dropped my phone out of my pocket, and I didn't know it for about an hour, and then I realized it was gone, and I know exactly where it fell out of my pocket. With an iPhone, they have a Find My iPhone feature that you can actually get online and see where your phone is. So I went to see where it was, assuming it was going to be where I left it. But in that hour, somebody had found the phone, and they had traveled up to Queens, which is where they had my phone. Now, my phone had a passcode on it, so I was not concerned that anybody was going to access what was on it. I was actually able to wipe off what was on it while they still had it, but I knew they weren't going to return it to me. They didn't. On the outside of my phone, I actually have my home number and my email address so that somebody can contact me if they find it, and there was no contact. So I knew I wasn't getting it back, but I wasn't worried because I put a passcode on. And if you don't think the passcode works, that it really won't protect the phone, ask the FBI whether or not it's going to protect the phone, because I didn't ever think they were that good until all of a sudden, you know, Apple's not relinquishing the admission to one of the phones. I thought, oh, I guess the passcode's better than I thought it was. Yes?
You know, can you use the thumb recognition in parallel with an actual password that you put in? The reason I asked the question is that, you know, suppose you die and your executor or hold member has to get access to your information on the machine.
Right.
And naturally, they're not going to take you out of the coffin and put your thumbprint on.
Right. It says, so his question is, can you, if you use a thumbprint on your phone, can you use it in conjunction with a password? So if God forbid something happens to you and you don't exist anymore, can somebody access your phone? It's a very good question, and I think you can do both, but the truth is, whatever lives on your smartphone now, whether it's an iPhone or whether it's an Android phone, can be set up so it all can be accessed from the internet. In other words, the cloud. When we talk about the cloud, in Manhattan, our apartments are small. So there's something called Manhattan Mini Storage. And what Manhattan Mini Storage is, it allows me to take that China set that I never use, but I don't want to get rid of, and store it someplace else. And the bicycle that I want to hang on to, but I store it someplace else. That's what the cloud is to your computer. It allows you to take information from your computer and either have it in 2 places or put it in 1 place so it doesn't take up space. So if you're an iPhone user, you have the ability to access iCloud. And iCloud is where all of your contacts, all of your emails, all of your photographs, all of your, anything that's on the phone, including the apps that you brought onto it, will live. So if somebody couldn't access your phone because they don't have your thumbprint, they don't want to cut your thumb off, which is only fair, they would be able to, if you gave them your password to your iCloud account, they would be able to access everything online. It's a very good point about passwords. I know passwords about nobody else getting into your account, but I've had it happen with clients of mine that after they pass away, the only way to access those accounts is to get the death certificate, which then gives the executor permission to get onto the accounts. It's much easier if you put them in an envelope and you give it to somebody, or you at least let somebody know where that envelope is with the passwords, so that they have access to it if in fact they need to. My sister knows all my passwords because I trust her. You may not want to do that with somebody, but at least let them know where the passwords are. So the next thing I want to walk you through, and again, this is a video on my website, and there are handouts in the back for this. A lot of people complain that their phone, by the time the day has gone through, they've run out of battery on their phone. And the whole point of having the smartphone with you is that you can use it at any time that you want to. So I want to walk you through some steps about how you can save the battery life on your phone. I will tell you, when it's an older phone, the battery life gets worse and worse. I hung on to my iPhone 4 until the last breath left it. And the last breath left it because I was actually hit by a car and it slammed onto the pavement. But it was much later. Everybody else had already gone through the iPhone 5 and they were starting with the iPhone 6, and I still had that iPhone 4 because I liked the size of it. But the battery life was quite bad. But here are the ways, new phone or old phone, that you can actually save the battery on your phone. Oh, we're going to hold for 1 second because